Hi, I wanted to talk about um basically a story from my family which reflects a type of story that doesn't get talked about much, which I mean, I think we all know that most Latino people are mixed, right? And they're mixed between African uh typically Spanish, but also sometimes other European descent people and indigenous people, right? And that includes yours truly. I know I pass, but yeah, I'm in Guatemala they call it Ladino, which I'll get into that later. It's kind of is different from what you usually hear, which is mestizo. Um, so yeah, basically, I just wanted to say or tell the story of the fact that my great 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 grandmother, um, or one of them, right? Because you have multiple going back that far. Specifically, it was my paternal great grandmother's grandmother, so her mother's mother. Um, she was a Spaniard, and the area where she came from, her family was one of the largest landowners there, and that area, and I'll get into why I'm not sure whether or not her husband was mixed or indigenous, but yeah, she almost certainly married a man who was mixed or indigenous. The problem is that the term Ladino is not a racial designation, it's a linguistic and cultural one. Um and and so basically it could go either way. He was either indigenous or he was mixed. Um, I'm more inclined to think that he was indigenous because, like, that area, as far as I've been able to term, we obviously don't have numbers going back that far to like the 1800s, or at least not reliable numbers. And so yeah, she married him, and but that's usually it's the other way around, right? You hear of Spanish men marrying indigenous women. Well, no, this is a story of the other way around, right? Where the Spanish woman marries uh an indigenous man, specifically one that speaks Spanish and is somewhat westernized. Um and so yeah, they own the gigantic plantation, and I'll get to the interesting thing here, which you know the United States conception of the peculiar institution and of for certain forms of servitude is sort of limited, right? And I this is what I wanted to share about the international perspective. They had a large plantation, and on that plantation, they had indigenous serfs who worked for them and like grew and harvested crops and all of that stuff. And again, keep in mind this is a woman married to um an indigenous man, and a man who it was comfortable with having serfs of his own background or of his own partial background. Um, right, but this sort of stuff actually in most Spanish and French colonies happen all the time. It even happened in the United States. This was how Louisiana was before it was purchased by the United States. And there was some friction there. Um, because, right, how you've been intermixing with each other for what, 200 years, and then all of a sudden um these people, Anglos that don't do that thing all of a sudden want to change your institutions completely and impose their hierarchy on you. Like, what the now, I'm not excusing the Spanish and French system, of course not, but it was just different. This is what people don't realize. This is what, like, when people say, "Oh, well, black people had servants too. Um, therefore what Americans did isn't as bad." No, it was just part of a different system. That doesn't make it any less wrong. That's not the way moral reasoning works. And um, as they say, two wrongs don't make a right. And so anyway, yeah, and so my grandmother again, he married um great grandmother married this indigenous man, and they had a lot of kids. And as you can imagine, their eldest child took control of that um of the plantation. And um you know he was ruthless. They called him El Marqués de Pampoquila, which means the Marquis of Pampoquila, which was the name of the plantation, right? So the fact that they called him a Marquis, keep in mind, there at this point there were no, like, noble titles didn't exist in post-colonial Guatemala. They still don't. And so that was basically like saying he ran the plantation feudally. And I mean, yeah, they did the same thing that they did with blacks in the United States. In fact, I don't know how many indigenous cousins I might have because of the infidelity of my uncles and grandparents. And both of them, by the way, not just my great 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 grandfather, my great 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 grandmother too, because again, they didn't care about interracial marriage like the US did. Um, but yeah, anyway, there's a story that of um a, a coupling that doesn't get talked about even in very rarely in American circles, even about like the colonies of the Louisiana territory, but not even in Spanish discourse that much about uh colonial and like right after independence, post colonial um Spanish nation states. All right, bye.